My name is Jordan, and I'm the programming manager for Living Proof exhibit. As some of you probably know, all of our programming is free to anyone impacted by cancer, and it's open to anyone touched by cancer. And tonight, we, Living Proof, would like to thank the Iowa Cancer Consortium for their support of our creative sessions. And we'd also like to thank the Azubuike African American Council for the Arts for partnering with us for this event. So I'm going to introduce you to Jonathan Burnett. I'm going to spotlight him, and then I will let him take over.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Jordan. So welcome to the creative session with Living Proof and Azubuike. Happy to be here. Most of you already know me, but I'll give you all just kind of a background on who I am. So my name is Jonathan Burnett. I'm a Rock Island native, and I'm also a filmmaker, independent filmmaker and educator. And I have my BFA and my master's degree in filmmaking, but I also dabble in a little bit of photography, very much at what I consider an amateur level, but I enjoy photography and also how photography can carry over to what I do as far as filmmaking. But as far as, using an actual camera, that's not what we're going to be learning this evening or learning about this evening. We're actually going to be learning about how to use it with your camera phones. So first of all, I just want to thank everyone for coming. And second, I just want to see, as far as individuals, how often, well, I'll just ask if you're able to do the hand raise reaction, or even the thumbs up reaction as seen here. Do you depend on your camera phones for taking picture and video at events, or just going about on trips or things like that? How many people do that? So I see that Miss Kathy, my mother, myself, of course, Miss Teresa, Miss Marie, do you also use it? Jordan uses it as well. So Miss Marie, you also use your camera phone to take images or video? Yes, Miss Marie does. And Mr. Renaud, do you also use your phone to take images and video as well? And I think you're muted at the moment, so if you want to chime in, you can unmute yourself. Okay, well, I'm just going to take that as a yes. But I mean, we all use our camera phones, and the thing about camera phones is that they're very, very, very advanced pieces of technology. They're able to do a lot more than what they were able to do when they first came around back in the day. I mean, I remember when I started with, my mom got me one of those old Nokia bricks, and the most exciting thing that I could use with a Nokia brick was to play Snake. So that was or Tetris or Asteroids or whatever game was on it. But now, as the technology is advancing, we're able to make, people are using it to document life events, document news, go like streaming, doing vlogs or blogs. I've seen exhibits of just cell phone photography in these little pop-up shops. I've seen whole films made on cell phone and be shown on Netflix. There's a Netflix film called High Flying Bird that is shot completely on an iPhone. So the phones are becoming very, very advanced every single year. And then also now, they don't only just film, you can also edit photos or video on your phone. So I'm not going to show you how to make a film on your phone, but what I'm going to do is give you the basics of using a cell phone, especially how you hold it, you know, what to look for creatively as far as some rules, and then also as far as rules in both photography and videography. And most of those rules are going to be one and the same with just some differences. I'm also going to just kind of show you how to break some of these rules, because once we know the rules are meant to be broken. And that's where creativity really comes out, is by breaking some of these rules. So hopefully, I'm going to want to be able to teach you, you know, after this, I'm hoping that you can practice and explore and be able to take images like, and I'm going to share my screen and show you, to take images like this, which this was taken on my cell phone. This is in Venice Beach, Los Angeles. And as you can see, there was a gentleman walking past the frame, so he's a little blurred. But this image is completely clean and still and in focus. So you'll be able to take images like that, hopefully. You can probably take images, more landscape images, like so. This was taken in Madison, Wisconsin. And I can talk more about that as far as how to take, or what is the process of taking an image like this. Or, you know, Miss Marie, you're going to love this one. Or taking images such as this. This was at Second Line Sunday in New Orleans. So, and just talking about the atmosphere in which you take images, or what angles, or what you're actually, what are you focusing on within the image. We can see a lot of things happening within this image, but, you know, how do we compose it? So I hope that you are inspired after this, just to go out with your phone and to be able to use it. But I want to hear from some of you as far as how you want to use these techniques, or what you might want to be able to capture, whether it's picture or video, after this lesson. And I'm going to open it up to whoever wants to chime in as far as, you know, why they want to take this course and what they want to do afterwards. So I'll open the floor to anybody that wants to, you know, just chat about it.
I will be, wanted to take it because I'll be posting in blogs and doing some different Bible study teachings. And I wanted to be able to use some of the pictures that I have. I do like little short film clips that I want to do. So that's what I'll be using it for.
Okay, that's great.
And Jonathan, I know you do things well, so I thought, well, as I become a grandma, I want to be able to do more videos of my grandchildren running around there calling me Mima.
Okay. And then I'll also be sure to, you know, also I'll show you a very small tip on holding the camera phone while recording to give you the steadiest image. It was a tip that I picked up on I think it was like a fashion photo shoot that I was working on in Los Angeles. And the guy who was lighting it, who's called the gaffer, or the lighting technician, he just showed me how he records using his cell phone, and it's a really unique way. So I'll save that for later. But yeah, chasing grandkids around, those are life events. Those are memorable moments. Yes, Mom.
I would like to learn more about how to develop or create, you know, meaningful content for either posting about events that Azubuike has, or if I am documenting, like when the breast cancer survivor ladies come in, try to document some stories. So I would just like to learn more about how to make those not just clear and crisp, but actually getting meaningful, you know, photos of that, where the photo itself tells a story. I'd like to be able to express through photography, stories kind of like, you know, of the Black experience, but kind of like, you know, not that I'm going to be, you know, Gordon Parks, but he kind of started by just teaching himself. I mean, he was self-taught, and he took a lot of pictures, and he captured a lot of images that really spoke and resonated, and that are now, you know, part of our history and our tapestry. So that's what I'd like to accomplish.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna hope that I'm able to help you on that journey and teach all of that. But okay. Does anybody else have any reasons that they want to chime in about or anything of the sort?
I want to, we're building furniture now, and I'm always trying to get the best lighting and best picture to show people the detail of the work that we do. And inevitably, it always comes out too dark, a bad angle or whatever. So I think this will be very advantageous for me so I can take better pictures. I could go get my 35 millimeter, but I just don't want to, or my digital camera, I'm sorry, my digital camera, but it's, you know, putting the lens on and putting that all together. But I always have my cell phone. So that will be one thing. And even when Randy and I are traveling, I would love to be able to take those, capture the memories or moments of, and make memories from the photographs. So that's my interest in this class.
Okay. So that, I mean, that's also a very good reason. And as far as like the furniture building, it's a good idea because sometimes, you know, how the furniture sells is based off of the image. And you want to have the best look possible for whatever you're selling. So as far as lighting, I have a question for you, Miss Teresa. Are you using like artificial lighting, or would you be planning on using natural lighting?
You know, more than, I've been using artificial lighting, but if there is, you know, if it's sunny outside and I can set it outside, I will take pictures that way. I did take a picture of one project that we worked on, and really when I look back at it, it's one of the better looking pictures that I've taken because it is outside and it looks like something that will go in a magazine. So, you know, that's something, but I am open to whatever would work best.
Okay, perfect. So, I mean, tonight I'm going to be mostly talking about natural lighting and how to use the sun to your advantage and what angles to shoot or film so you get the best amount of lighting, and then also using your environment to give you what we're going to call soft lighting or bounce light. So so those are kind of the things that I'm going to be talking about this evening. So I think everybody's in luck. So the first thing that I want to talk about is going to be on the photography side. And then I'm going to go into the videography side. But there's a few things that I kind of want to go over that I was just thinking about that I kind of, that I know a lot of people have issues with as far as taking images on their phone. And it's just how to use the phone in general, or how to hold the phone in general. So a few things about using or holding the phone. So as far as images or video, when you go into your, and you can't see it on my end, but when you go into your phone settings, you can kind of select how you want a video to come out or how you want your images to come out. And the phones are allowing you to be more and more hands-on with how you take your photos. And there's a lot of different selections and manual functions that you're able to use. So for example, on my iPhone, they have selections for time lapse. They have, if you want to take slow motion videos, if you want to take just regular videos, and then even as far as regular videos, you can shoot in 1080p, 720. As far as resolutions, you can even shoot in 4K on these phones now. And they look very cinematic, very good. You can do wide like, you know, wider images. You can zoom in with like, you know, without getting too much like distortion or pixelation. You can do what's called portrait mode, where it artificially creates a what we call bokeh. And bokeh is just basically whatever is in the background behind the subject. So say if I'm the subject and this background right here is blurred, then that's what bokeh is, B-O-K-E-H, bokeh. So bokeh is just essentially blur quality, and the phones are able to do that. And then you can even have a panoramic shot where it's a, you know, you can have, you can do a shot of like a whole entire room in one image. So these are, or like a 360 shot, if you want to think about panoramic shot. So like these are the things that your phone like are able to do if you explore it. But I'm going to focus on just the regular photo and how we take the photo. So first thing I'm going to talk about are some rules of composition. Or no, I'm sorry, how to hold the phone. So when we're taking a photo, there's really normally two ways that you are going to hold it. It is either like this, and then I'm sorry if my background is affecting it. It's either like this, where you can see, here, there we go, where you can see my thumb is on the side for, this works for me because I like to use my thumb and have it on the side just to keep it stable. And then I have a solid grip at the bottom right here. And whenever I move my thumb or adjust my hand, I can just take a photo. And then normally when I'm taking the photo, my elbow's bent, so I can be as stable as possible, because I don't want to take it like here, or I don't want to have it too close to the chest. I kind of have it right around here, just a little bit of a bend in the elbow. And then also when you do it landscape, because this is portrait and then this is landscape. So when I take the image landscape, notice where my fingers are positioned, because there's a lot of times where I see fingers drifting in front of the camera like this in photos. And sometimes I'm just like, you know, it's just simple right here. And then it will give you a good, steady, sturdy view of using it. Another thing that we don't think about sometimes is cleaning the lens. So every once in a while, just wiping the lens with your t-shirt or like a wet wipe or something like that. Something non-corrosive, of course, because you don't want to damage it. Just cleaning it off can make an image look clearer, because sometimes we have a bit of dust or grime or things like that built up on the image. So those are kind of two things that I would suggest. And then it's the same thing for when you're taking video, the same hand position, both portrait and landscape. But to go back to Miss Marie and chasing grandkids, so let's say you're chasing grandkids, there's a little trick that someone taught me on set. Is what he does is he holds the phone upside down and holds it from the bottom, and then he's able to do a lot of movement and chasing and everything like that. Of course, you're probably going to have to flip it in, you know, when you get it off of your phone, but you can flip the image when you're on your phone. But he was able to, he said that this is just the steadiest for him as far as chasing and tracking you know, subjects when you're recording, is holding it upside down like this. So those are just kind of just basics on how to handle your phone when you're taking video or when you're taking photo. So, but let's talk about the composition. And with the composition, I'm going to be scrolling through different images that I found for examples, just to properly explain everything. So let me just pull up my notes real quick, and let's start with the first word of advice. So there's about 6 really easy like composition rules for photography. And I think the number one rule is simplify the scene, is the rule. So we want to try to, when we take a picture, we want to try to make the picture as simple as possible. What do you mean by simple? So say, for example, you have an image and the background is just completely cluttered, and there's no real focus on what or who and everything like that. So let me show an example of what I mean. So I'm going to share an image with you that gives you an example. And let's see if I can. Well, I'll just show the whole thing, and then we'll just go from there. So let me just share my screen. Okay. So what do I mean by simplify the screen? What do I mean by, like, you know, eliminate the clutter? So we can see this image of this young girl here, right? So when we look at the left image, we see she has a cup, cars, Legos, painting, like, you know, drawings, and then the back of the kitchen has all this stuff around it. And this is, I mean, we're kind of focused on her, but also there's a lot going on within this frame. But then when we look at the right side of the frame, we simplify it. We move a lot of the clutter out of the image, and we just focus on the main subject, which is the little girl, right? So that's kind of how we simplify a scene. That's how we make it simple. We want to know what our primary focus is, and we want to focus on that subject sometimes, at least to start. Now, how you can break that is the image that I showed you from the second line Sunday, because that image was very cluttered. And I'm gonna bring that image back up. Because I think at first we want to learn how to take an image by focusing on a single point. But then when we get more advanced, then we can take images like this, bringing back up the second line Sunday right here. So there's a lot going on, but there is still a primary focus. And when I took this image, the primary focus was this church. That was my primary focus. And then everything around it actually supplements what I'm trying to take. And it becomes more of a observational, probably photojournalistic type of feel. But my focus was always the church. I wasn't focusing on anything but anyone else but the church. But then when I have that main focus and I try to simplify it, I say, like, I want to get this image of the church, right? When I take that image, then everything else seems to just flow and happen naturally within the image. Mom, you're raising your hand, or no? Okay. So yeah, that's what I mean by simplify the scene. Really focus on what like who the primary focus is, or what image. And then also, you don't have to take an image within a busy space. If you want a nice clean image, you can move the subject, or tell the subject, to tell your grandbabies, like, no, don't move over this way, you know, I want to take a nice image of you, like, you know, that type of thing. You don't have to take it within a cluttered space, especially if it's for memories, right? So the second piece of advice is using the rule of thirds. Now, the rule of thirds is something that is transferable to videography. And let me show you an example of the rule of thirds real quick. Let me just find it. Here we go. So I'm gonna try to, yep, okay, that looks good. So, okay, so this is the rule of thirds. So I don't know if you're able to see it, but there are 4 lines intersecting each other. There's 2 vertical lines. There's one line right here, and there's one line right here. And then there's 2 horizontal lines, one line right here and one line right here. And they create 4 intersections where these red circles are. Now, most of your phones have this capability on it already, And I think it would be called on an iPhone or even on an Android, it might be called grid, like a grid mode. The grid mode is basically the rule of thirds. And kind of what it is, it's kind of a guide to make an interesting, to more or less make an interesting composition and or image. So as you can see, we have our subject is basically on, if not both, one of these intersecting points. So the young man on the motorbike is on one of these intersecting points, which makes for a unique image. It would be okay if it was this wide, if he was in dead center, but sometimes our eye, likes something different. We don't like to do what is expected. We like things to be a little shifted, but this also creates somewhat of symmetry. And there are some other things that are happening within this image that I'm going to talk about and refer to this image, but like this is the rule of thirds. So normally in one of these intersecting points, your subject should be on it. And also when you do a portrait or a close-up, if you want to have a creatively interesting close-up or portrait, what you can do is I would say if your subject is favoring the right side of the frame, then you put their left eye on this point. So it would create a very interesting composition and look, and it will create something that I'm going to talk about called looking room for the subject. So that is the rule of thirds. And to break the rule of thirds, once you know the rule of thirds, you can break it, because sometimes you can put a subject right here. Sometimes a subject can be right here. And it's just however you want to use it and explain it creatively. But for, normal everyday photography, or just slightly more interesting photography, the rule of thirds is a good thing to use on your phone. So the next piece of advice that I'm going to give you is, this piece of advice, I want to tell it to you, but I immediately want you to break it, because I think that embracing this is better than not embracing it. And what the rule is to fill the frame. So there's something that is called negative space. And I actually want to bring up the rule of thirds again to explain what negative space is. So negative space, once I bring this back up, this is considered negative space. And they try to tell you to fill the frame as much as possible. But I think we like this because there's something else that's in the next rule, which is called leading lines. And I'm going to show you an example. So like I enjoy negative space because it just makes an image interesting, but sometimes people don't like negative space. Sometimes people want to just solely focus on the subject. But this negative space combined with leading lines, which are the train tracks, create depth. So it doesn't feel flat. And that's why I personally like using, using negative space within my imagery, because it doesn't feel flat. It doesn't feel like, oh, well, that's it. There's depth to it. It reaches as far as the eye can see, all the way back here. And this is like, this is how we look at things. This is how we see things. So going into leading lines, there are other ways to create leading lines, which are very, very simple. So let me pull up some more examples of leading lines, and then I'm going to ask you if it feels dynamic or not. So aside from and this is a very simple way to test leading lines. So aside from the rule of thirds image, does this image feel dynamic to you? This image right here. It feels pretty dynamic, right? these are the leading lines, are the train tracks. So using these lines, and then also the gravel, using these lines as a guide can make an image look dynamic, and it creates depth within the frame. So leading lines can be as simple as train tracks. It can be as simple as and this is something that you can actually do along the river. It can be as simple as a park bench. But using these lines to create a dynamic image in depth is so easy. All you have to do is just you place your phone on the bench, and then you focus, and then you press click, and then you have it. This is very simple to do. Yes.
Can you also use your timer so you can get it situated and then, get your hands off of it and it takes the picture?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, of course. If you're able to use the timer, then yeah, use the timer. But if you don't want to use a timer, you can just simply, when you have it on a flat surface, just kind of have your hand on top of it to steady it, and then just press with your thumb. And the good thing about it is that unlike using 35mm film cameras, or the point and shoots where you have to look through the viewfinder, with camera phones, you can just take a few images without even looking at the screen sometimes, and then just look at it and say, okay, do I like that? And then you just resituate it, and then just try to get it right, get it right on a few tries. So that's kind of the ease and the beauty of camera phones sometimes. But yeah, using a timer, yeah, if you know how to use a timer, that's probably even better. To just get a very steady and stable shot. So yeah, and then here's another, I think I had another example of leading lines that that was pretty creative, in my opinion, that I wanted to share with you. Yes, okay, here it is. It's a little pixelated because I got the wrong version of it, so I apologize. But yeah, this is another example of leading lines. Just looking up into the sky. These are like tall trees. Looking up into the sky. These are an example of leading lines as well. So, so yeah. The next piece of advice is how you position or angle your shot, whether you use a high angle or a bird's eye view, or a low angle or a bird's eye view, or an eye level shot, which is basically the eye level of either the subject or the person taking the picture. And you can even apply this to selfies, because I've seen in my time a lot of people, especially on their Facebook profile pictures, using low angles of a lot of their Facebook profile pictures, and they're looking down at their phone as a profile pic. So, I want to just help anybody that has that and just have an eye level selfie. So using angles can create an interesting composition and make it dynamic. And let me show you the difference between a bird's eye view as well as a worm's eye view. So we have, bringing up my examples, bird's eye and also worm's eye view, which is also a bit small. So I apologize for that. I got the wrong resolution size for it. So, oh, that's a worm's eye view. Here's a bird's eye view. So this is the high angle or bird's eye view. It's basically, you're taking the image above the subject as if you're a bird in the sky. So that's a bird's eye view. And what what type of effect does a bird's eye view have? And I want to open it up to the floor. So when you take an image like this, how does it make the subject look?
It seems like it makes them nearer to you and bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Bigger and nearer to you.
From the bird's eye perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does anybody have any other answers or possibilities of what a bird's eye view does to a subject or an image?
It actually, well, it brings okay, I'll just say the cat. The cat's face is more in focus, but its body, there's a blurriness to everything else that's around it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I see that. It almost looks narrower and longer to me too.
Yeah. Yeah. Right up, like for sure, like right above. Yeah, it's going to make the image look narrower, smaller. But then also within this image, it creates a power dynamic because of the fact that from above, it makes the image look smaller, more, I guess you could say, powerless, more like as far as this cat, dependent on the subject. So when you're looking at it from a high angle, it makes you literally and figuratively, the subject seems smaller. But then when you have a worm's eye view, and this is going to be a bad example of a worm's eye view, so I apologize. Actually, let me find a better example of a worm's eye or a high angle. And then also there are like worm's eye and low angles are kind of different because worm's eye is like, it's almost looking straight up, but I think they have the same effect. But let me find a good worm's eye view image real quick. So I'm going to select this one here, and I'm just going to okay, I found us a good one. So this worm's eye view or low angle, or what we can also consider calling the superhero angle, will look like this. So when we're looking up at a subject, it makes us as the viewer seem like this subject is like, you know, a superhero, like a deity, or like they have the power, you know, it makes them feel very powerful, makes the image look very powerful. This is the worm's eye or view or a low angle. So that's kind of the feeling that we have when we take these types of images. So how you take the image, whether it's from a higher angle, lower angle, or even eye level, which is just kind of normally your eye level is just neutral. It's either the eye level of the subject, so at the height of the subject, or the height of the, mainly the height of the subject is what makes it neutral eye level. It depends on what you choose, on how, of what your image is going to, I guess you could say, represent or feel. And mostly, especially when you were working with camera phones, I like shooting things based on how it looks and feels more so than, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. Because sometimes breaking the rules or not adhering to the rules can make your eye, like if you have a good eye and instincts, it looks aesthetically pleasing sometimes when you go based off of feeling. So, but let's look at the next tip. And so the next composition tip for photography is, is essentially when you're out shooting or when you're done shooting and you're looking through the images, Reflect, study them, see how they came out, see what you like, see what you don't like, and then just, you know, see, let's say like, oh, what did Mr. Jonathan say when he was talking about angles? What did he say? You know, think about it. Just say, okay, well, maybe next time I have to hold it like this, more at their eye level, or maybe next time I should put them to the right side of the frame along the intersecting thirds, or like maybe I should do it on this side. You know, really reflect on it and study your images after you take them. Just don't take them and then post them. Like really curate and kind of almost vet what images are going to be put up on your social media, because I think the more that you look and understand the compositions of the images you take, the better they become, because it's practice. Essentially, you practice and you review the work, is what I would call it. So okay, so as far as those composition rules, does anybody have any questions at all, or just any comments, things like that? Floor is open.
Well, the thing with the camera, where you made them look like they were, like you said, empowered, bigger. How did you say you hold that camera again? What do you do?
So you have it at, so that is a low angle shot. So if you essentially take an image from below the subject, then, you know, and if they do maybe like a superhero pose, and you have them like standing on the bench, and you take an image of them from below, then that will be kind of that will be the dynamic of the shot, or the feeling of the shot, especially if you give it a little bit of looking room, which is what we're going to talk about as far as cinematography is concerned, or videography. You can really come out with some really like triumphant superhero looking images if you take it from a low angle. So when you take something from a low angle, it means the actual camera is below the subject.
Okay. Thank you.
And that might be one that's particularly good for you, Miss Marie, because kids, especially boys, like to see themselves as superheroes. So,
well, yeah, and I see Kenan sometimes take those kind of pictures of little Avery.
So that's
I was thinking the same thing, especially for like grandkids, you know, just to play around and take those type of images. They can be very fun. So yeah, but let's talk about lighting now. And there's a few things that I want to talk about as far as lighting, and just a few tips of advice, especially when we're working with natural lighting, and how to use our environment, how to only light something just with the sun. So just a few advice points and everything as far as lighting. So I'm going to pull up a diagram to explain the different types of lighting, just when you're using the sun and having your phone, or directional lighting, and how to use it, and what it will look like when you use it. And some of these images are not like, you know, most of these images are not sunlight, but I think you can, you know, kind of get the idea of how it will look. So I'm going to pull up the directional lighting diagram here. So we have directional lighting right here, right? So we have the camera, which is you, and we have the subject that's in front of the lens, right? So there are 4 different types of lighting. There's front lighting, there's back lighting, and then there's 2 different types of side lighting. And each side, whether it's from the right or whether it's from the left, they give a different they give a different look, of course, because of where the light is placed. Now, normally the rule of thumb is that when you have a camera and you're filming anything or taking photos of anything, if you want a very even, well-lit look, you always place your back to the sun if you want even front lighting. So if your back is to the sun when you're taking the picture, then your subject is going to be even, well-lit all the way around. And it's going to look something like this. Now, this isn't the sun, but this can be an example of something that is front lit. So let me share this again. So if the camera is to your, so if you have a camera and it's to, if you have the sun and it's to your back, then most of the sunlight is going to be going over you and the camera and then hitting the subject just like this. So see how the subject is completely well lit, evenly well lit. There's no real shadows, no nothing. And then also what directional, like full-on front lighting can do is also it can really accentuate the angles and the curves of the face, as well as like the neck and shoulders. And it looks like this could be, this could be done outdoors, because this could be like a white wall, and that creates bounce lighting, which is basically lighting the back of her as well, but just with a softer light, because the harshest or the key light is going to be the sun. And then the bounce lighting is going to come from the back and backlighter as well. So it's almost like a 2-point, what we call a 2-point lighting. What we have here, we have the sun, and then we have the bounce coming from the back. But mostly what I want you to focus on is what it looks like as front lit, right? So then let's look at the diagram again. So we have the diagram here. So we just saw front lit, what that looks like. Now, what if the subject was backlit? Well, first of all, I want to ask, why do you want to backlight the subject? What is your main goal when you backlight the subject? Because sometimes I've seen people just shoot like with the sun to the subject's back, and then they come out in silhouette. Is that a choice, or was that just kind of a mistake? So we have to be aware of where the sun exactly is when we're taking these shots. Because if you have the subject backlit, then it's going to look something like this. It's going to look something like this. But is that an aesthetic choice that you're making? It could be, or it could be a mistake. Who knows? But what I'm showing you right now is, as you can see over his right shoulder, that's the sun. And this is the image that it's going to make when the subject is backlit. Sometimes it can be, sometimes in certain lighting as the sun, depending on where the sun is, he can be silhouetted more so or less so. But generally, this is how it's going to look when you take a picture of someone with the sun to their back, or if they're backlit. So what about side lighting? Let's start with side lighting from the right side of the frame. So let's start with that real quick. So let me bring up the diagram again. So we have the diagram. So let's start from this side and what that's going to look like. Let me pull that up. So we have side lighting from frame right. Now I'm going to share this with you right here. So we have side lighting from frame right. So this subject is standing, her left side is facing the sun, or it's coming from frame right, the right side of the frame. So as you can see, and this is how you can tell, even though it looks like she's a bit front lit, you can see that it's not completely front lit, because if she was front lit, all of this that's in shadow would be perfectly exposed and well lit. But as you can see, it's like, it's harsh, 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 and then it slowly starts to kind of shadow on the right, on her right side. You can even see a shadow of her hair on her face right here. So you can tell the sun is to her left or on frame right. So that is what it's going to look like if we have the, if we have our subject side lit from frame right, or the left side of them lit. Now, essentially, this is what it's going to look like if it's the opposite way. So let me go back to the diagram again. So we have side lighting from frame left, and this is what it's going to look like if we have the side lighting from frame left. And then this for sure was done in a studio. So this is not sunlight, but this is what it would look like if the right side of the subject was lit. So just pretend that's the sun for a second. And then also, was really a lot of Photoshop going on, but I think, the subject was wearing black clothing, and it was a really dark space, and then they just kind of spotlighted. And then also it looks like kind of, he might have been up against like another black platform or something like that for his hand to be flat. But this is what it looks like when we have side lighting coming from frame left, and it's lighting the right side of the subject. So these are kind of all the directions of, these are kind of just all the directions of lighting that you can have when using the sun. So then if you have the question of like, okay, so what if I don't want to have a lot of sunlight? I want to have a little bit, and my sun, the sun is to my back, and I don't want too much lighting. Then what are some tips on getting maybe softer lighting? Okay, so for example, in the frontal light, let's say you're walking down in downtown Davenport, and you want to get a very, you don't want to get too harsh of lighting in the sun. Let's say the sun is, because normally the first tip would be don't shoot at noon, because when it's high noon and you're filming or shooting, everything is very harsh if there's no clouds, because what clouds do is it diffuses the light, or overcast. It diffuses the light, meaning it spreads the light out. So it's like an even lighting throughout the day. But if you don't have any clouds in the sky and it's high noon and the sun is hanging there, it makes everything look harsh and it's not very appealing. But let's say around like, if it's setting, let's say around like 1 or 2 and it's starting to move and it's kind of angling a little bit, then what you can do to get soft lighting on an image is, let's say you walk past a white wall, right? Like we saw in the first image. So you put your back to that wall, and then you have your subject kind of stand in front, and the sun, even though the sun is behind the subject, it's bouncing off of the wall and lighting the subject evenly, and it's cutting down on the harshness of the light. So that's a trick that you can use. Another trick that you can use is that shoot in the shade. If you see trees or anywhere and you just take an image in the shade.
Jonathan, go back and do that little one you just said. I think I got it. Say it one more time, what you said about cutting the harshness. Say that one more time.
Yeah, so by cutting the harshness of the lighting. So say if you have a white wall and you're using that wall as what we call bounce lighting. So the sun is hitting the wall directly, and then it's bouncing light onto the subject. And that cuts down on the harshness of the lighting rather than getting it full on from the sun. it's bounced off of a wall, which cuts down on the lighting and probably gives a more even look to it. So that's what bounce lighting is. And then there's also bounce lighting tricks that you can use. You can have cardboard, you can have like an actual bounce board. You can even use in some cases a white sheet of paper to bounce light off of like, you know, from the sun and onto someone's face, just to have like an even exposure and no shadows. So there's a lot of tricks to the trade. There's even a time where, like, see how I'm wearing a white shirt? I've even had someone who's wearing a white shirt, like, you know, stand off and use their shirt to reflect light onto a person. Just whatever's available to you, I just suggest that you use it. The second thing is shoot in the shade. So let's say you do have a very like a noonish look or a toppy look. Sometimes shooting in the shade is best. There's at Vanderveer Park, I've never noticed this at Vanderveer Park, but there's like a row of trees in Vanderveer Park that present a lot of shade all throughout the day. And looking down, and then plus it's leading lines, looking down that row of trees, all it is shade, 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 right? So using shade or shooting in shade can give you very, very nice soft lighting. The only issue is that it depends on when you have the background is not covered in shade, it's going to be what we call blown out, which means it's going to look very harsh and very, like, you know, have harsh white lighting, which is not what we want, especially just in camera, because that means we have to fix it at some point. So what I would suggest for that is just change up your composition. If you can't shoot too wide, shoot close and try to have your subject cover up that background of white, of the harsh white light, and then to keep that very soft, smooth look of the shaded images when we're shooting in natural lighting circumstances. So those are more or less kind of my tips as far as directional lighting. And as far as like photography, those are kind of just tips and tricks that I have as far as photography is concerned. So are there any questions before I segue into videography? Nope, we can move on. Okay, we'll move on. And then if it feels like, if anybody wants to chime in at any time, please do. As much as I like talking, I do enjoy listening just as much. So, so yeah, anytime anybody wants to say something, just cut me right off, and then we can also just chat about other different situations, and things of that sort.
I'm sorry, Jonathan. I do have a question. Is this being recorded? Because this is very valuable information. It is, Ms. Gay. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great stuff.
And then also, thank you. Also, I was going to mention to you, Miss Teresa, as far as like filming your furniture, like, you know, the lighting of your furniture, especially like directional lighting can really help you. And then also what angle you shoot your furniture can help you. So sometimes I think that low angles can work pretty well for products, or like eye level, but not really high angle, because for some reason in our mind, psychologically, it might like devalue the product if you shoot it at a high angle rather than shooting it from a low angle or a eye level. So if you have, like, I would say like a pedestal for like your furniture, that might help you out, and filming it or taking a picture of it from like a slightly low angle, and, you know, probably having the light to your back, so it's just like nicely evenly lit and natural light, that might, you know, it will give you a good looking image, for sure. I would think, at least. So just those were some thoughts that kind of ran through my head as far as taking pictures of products. for like furniture, for example. So yeah. Okay, so moving into cinematography or videography. Now, a lot of these rules are going to really they're transferable, really. But I think there are a few things that that we don't talk about as far as videography. And we mentioned kind of how to hold the phone. I think holding the phone is very important, and trying to be as steady as possible is very important. So I taught that trick. If you can't hold it steady like this or like this, the best way to hold it steady is to hold it upside down. Because I think it even feels different when you try to hold it like this, and then I don't know why it feels different, but it just does. But compared to holding it upside down, you just feel more relaxed for some reason. Don't know why, but I think maybe, I don't know. I can feel it kind of in my shoulder a little bit. I can't explain it. Whoever's a physical therapist or kinesiologist or physiologist, please explain it to me. But that's how it just feels. But some of the rules are transferable. So like we have the rule of eye level framing, what I spoke about. So basically keeping your eye level, making your camera or your lens eye level to the subject or the product, for example. So eye level framing is to make things neutral, unless you decide to shoot at a high angle or at a low angle, right? So now then the second tip for composition for video, something that I touched upon but didn't really explain, is leading room or looking room for your subject. So let's say you are, you can do interviews two ways, and then or a few ways, and this kind of uses the rule of thirds, but each thing has a different feel to it. So when you give a subject, when you're recording them, looking room, it's essentially, so say if right now I'm on the right side of the frame and I'm looking to the left, that is essentially looking room. This is standard for some interviews. You can do interviews straight on if you're trying to prove a point or trying to make the subject the clear focus, or if it's like, now I'm on the left side looking right. And this is what we consider looking room. And the good thing about looking room is that it kind of is aesthetically pleasing, because let's say you have a background, you can kind of see what the movement in the background, and then it keeps the image interesting when you're recording video. But how do people break the rules, and what does it look like? So let me show you what looking room how looking room is normally. So we have looking room. Let me find it. And then also I'll bring up no looking room. So I don't think I shared that. It looked like it was sharing, but it's not. Okay. So we have looking room, and we're getting kind of more into like a film thing. So I can't help it. I apologize. But whenever I teach videography or cinematography, I talk about how it makes us feel. So we have looking room. So the subject or the actor is on the right side of the frame, looking left. This is how normally things should look. And it feels just very, very normal, very, very natural. But what if we want to make our subject feel trapped? Then we have them look on the same side that they're on. And this creates a bit of claustrophobia. It makes us feel uneasy. Because sometimes when we break away from the norms, it creates some type of psychological feeling, or like, you know, physical feeling, and this person feels claustrophobic, it feels claustrophobic, they feel trapped. So that's kind of a way that you can break looking room. But it all depends on how you want the image, and you can do this with photography as well. But it depends on how you want to make the person looking at this feel. I mean, if you're going to do if you want to just make videos of, you know, of just family events, then no, I do not suggest making your subject feel claustrophobic or trapped or anything like that. So looking room is probably best in those types of situations. So another tip, the same thing, rule of thirds. Rule of thirds is transferable from photography to videography. It helps create very interesting compositions in both. And I really feel that it's just something that makes your, if you haven't used the rule of thirds, or what our phone calls the grid, it will make your photography or videography 10 times better. I guarantee it. Yes.
I just wanted to know, is anybody having problems with Jonathan's video or audio? Unmute yourself and let me know.
It goes in and out sometimes.
Okay, how about you,
Yeah,
Teresa?
a little bit of it was going in and out.
Okay,
Yeah, it went in and out for me. I missed pretty much all that Jonathan said about furniture picture taking. So I'll have to rewatch the video.
all right. How about Jordan? Is it going in and out for you since you're taping it?
No, it's been fine the whole time. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what's going on.
I don't know either, because it's okay for me, so I was surprised when you said that. Miss Marie, is it going in and out for you? I don't know. People aren't on. Maybe they're out. This is weird. Paxton?
No, ma'am, I've heard everything.
Oh, okay. Marie? Okay. All right. Well, we'll continue, and we do have it taped, and the tape is okay. All right. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, and then if I need to repeat anything, like I'm okay with repeating it. But if anybody just wants to watch the video, that's cool too. But as far as rule of thirds, as far as video and photography, same principle. Really the same principle. So okay, the next sorry, I just kind of partially gave it away. Adequate headroom as far as video and photography. So adequate headroom is what I have right here. This would be considered adequate headroom, maybe even this, but this is obviously not adequate headroom. So as you can see, my head is being cut off right here. Where we will kind of want it is somewhere around here for adequate headroom. It just feels better. But then also we don't want too much headroom where it makes the subject look small or short, or almost like their neck is like right there on the line. So that is a videography thing, especially if you're doing like, you know, on the spot interviews, or even recording yourself talking about something. You want to give yourself adequate headroom when you're doing the selfie video. So the last tip, and then I think we're going to just probably chat about why, like a little bit more about why we want to use these skills and tools to, you know, a bit further, because I know we talked about it at the beginning, but, you know, what we plan to do and how we plan to practice, or how we plan to use it after I give this last tip, as far as, you know, videography, is something that's called the 180-degree rule. So I do not expect anybody here, except for Paxton, to use the 180-degree rule, because it is really, really like a film composition rule, especially when you're doing a dialogue between characters. But if you use it, then that's okay too, especially if you want to make a small short with your camera phone. So if you use it, perfect, I will teach it to you. But essentially, this is what the 180-degree rule is. So in videography, we use this rule and we do not break it because it creates what we call continuity error. So the 180-degree rule is there's a line between two subjects. So let's say we have character A and character B, and we want to put together a consistently natural looking dialogue scene, right? And we want to shoot it in 3 setups. So we have a wide shot, which is a very full shot showing both characters and then a lot of the background. We have a close-up on character A, who they call Mindy, which is basically this composition, probably right here is a close-up. And then the same shot is Darren. So we cut between these 3 angles, or these 3 camera setups. So we have a line, an invisible line that passes right through the passes right through both of the subjects here. And once that line is established, we do not cross that line. We stay on that line the same, like, you know, all the way through. So when we get a close-up of Mindy, we normally want to film it either a little outside Darren's shoulder, left shoulder, or kind of right over Darren's left shoulder. Same with the close-up of Darren, it's going to be on Mindy's right shoulder or over Mindy's right shoulder. Now, what this look is going to be is if we're shooting over Darren's left shoulder, then essentially Mindy is going to be on, let me think about this for a second, the left side of the frame. Now, if we shoot over Mindy's right shoulder, then Darren is going to be on the right side of the frame. And in the wide shot, they're going to be standing in front of each other having a conversation, right? So if we were to cross this line, then essentially it will switch. And we don't want it to switch. We want Darren to be on the right side of the frame, and we want Mindy to be on the left side of the frame. Because in our minds, it makes like, you know, as far as continuity and editing, it makes sense. So actually, you know what? Just because I'm second guessing myself, and I know Paxton knows, Paxton, I'm not making this, I'm not mistaken, right? This is like, if it's over his left shoulder, then she'll be on the left side of the frame, right? For Mindy's close-up.
I believe
I don't
so. No,
Okay.
that's okay. I'm trying to like make sure that my lefts and rights are right. But yes, I think you are completely right.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, Paxton's one of my students, so I know she knows her stuff, so I always gotta refer to her or like, you know, ask any of my students, because sometimes I forget too. But essentially that's what it is. You don't want to cross that line unless you plan on breaking it. And the only time you plan on breaking the line is if you want to really confuse the audience. And I think a lot of action movies do it. If any of you've seen any of the Matrix movies, you know, with like Neo and like Keanu Reeves and Lawrence Fishburne, like, you know, any of the Matrix movies, they break the line all the time throughout the whole film. So that's that effect, because it's very jarring, it's all over the place, very action-packed. But for normal stuff, if you ever do anything like this, then this is the 180-degree rule. When you establish where the line is, and when you shoot that first shot, then you have to stay on that side of the line. You can straddle the line where the camera is directly on the line, but you can't cross it, or else you lose all continuity. So that is, those are kind of the tips and tricks for videography and cinematography. As far as that is concerned, does anybody have any questions of something that, you know, they might want to know, or something that they feel like I missed, or even some technical questions with your phone of where to find, how to change things if you have an iPhone? Unfortunately, I don't have an Android, but if some of you have Android, maybe I can help you find some things on your phone. But if it's mainly iPhone, like, I can help you find what you need to find, or how to change anything on your phone, or just questions or topics or your thoughts in general.
So when you were saying that the 1080 settings are on the iPhone, when will we switch between the 1080 and the 720?
So it depends on, so when you're switching resolution, and let's say you're switching resolution, you go to video on your iPhone, right? And you couldn't see it, but so on your iPhone, when you go to video, at the top right hand corner, you're going to see different types of settings. Right now, my setting is in 4K. It says that's the resolution, and the frame rate is 24 frames per second. So 24 frames per second is essentially what the human eye sees. So those are the settings that I normally work with, but you can change it to 1080 HD, excuse me, which is 1080p, or 4K. So I normally use 4K 24 frames per second, because to me it's the most cinematic. But if you want to use 30 frames per second, 30 frames per second is more, it's more like for news or more photojournalistic type of look, or more of a soap opera type of look, is when you use 30 frames per second on your iPhone when you select it. And then when you have 60 frames per second, 60 frames per second is more of a, it's a sharper look. But what we do with 60 frames per second when we record it, when we take that footage and we put it into a timeline for 24 frames per second, and it creates slow motion, is why we record things in 60 frames per second. But as far as resolution is concerned, when you wanted to use 1080 or 720 or use 4K, essentially, like, I would use 1080 normally if I want to keep the file sizes small, because the higher the resolution, the more memory space it takes up on your phone. So I think, as far as because I just got a new phone, so I should actually look at what I'm capable of doing on it. So I go to, so for iPhone, if you go to settings and you go to camera, and then you also go to record video, then you can select, like, you know, how much resolution you have. 720 if you don't want that much space taken up. You have 1080, and then you have 1080 in 30 and 60 frames per second. They don't have 24, but 4K you have 24, 30, and 60 frames per second. And essentially, they even tell you it's you know, what the function for, they tell you the function of each resolution. Like it says 720 HD at 30 frames per second, they call it a space saver. So if you want smaller files and you're taking a lot of video and you don't mind having 720 as far as a resolution, then you want to save space, then you can use it as a space saver. They say even here it's 4K at 24 frames per second is a film style. So those are kind of essentially when you would, that's essentially when you would want to use, different resolutions. It just depends on how much space you want to save.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
thank you.
Yeah, of course, of course.
So, Mr. Jonathan, how long are you in the Quad Cities?
I'm leaving Sunday.
Good. I get to see you Thursday, and you can show me what I'm looking at, because I'm looking at my phone, and I never looked at the phone that way. But now that I'm looking at it, you can tell me whether I did it right or not. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we can even take some test shots on Thursday too.
You sure you want to be bothered with all of?
I don't mind. I don't mind.
That's why I love you.
Love you too, Miss Marie. So, okay. If anybody, if you don't have any more questions, then I guess I would want to just, you know, I guess I don't know. Maybe I should ask from here on out, what do you plan to document? How, like, how has this changed your perspective? Give me feedback on the lesson, and then see how I can improve or see how it's helped you. I'll start with my mom just to see what she thought. Go ahead, take it away.
Okay. Well, contrary to popular belief, he doesn't spend a lot of time trying to teach me how to use my camera. So this has been, it's been really helpful for me.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm like Teresa, I will probably go back and actually refer to this this recording, because the information, it was a lot of detailed information. You gave it in a very concise way and easy to understand, but it was still a lot at one time. So I want to go back and have time to listen to it and then try something, and then listen to it again and then try this. I pulled up the grid on my phone, which I didn't know I could do before, but I can see, what you were talking about with the rule of thirds, right? Yeah. So anyway, but I've never used it before, so I'd have to do that, see what difference it makes with my, the photography, and see how it can impact, what I'm trying to document and what I'm trying to capture, because I do want my pictures to tell a story and to, invoke feeling and stuff like that. And I think, really just being able to listen to this over and over will help me until I've actually, learned how to do it. So.
Well, another thing I want to mention on top of that, and I'm glad that you found the grid, is that once you have your subject in the, a few things, once you have your subject framed the way you want, sometimes, which is a problem with these phones, unless you get like a third-party app, the phone, or I think you can actually take it off of auto, because sometimes with photo, it's always on auto mode. I know with video, it's most likely always on auto mode, but you can take it off and do it manually. And sometimes when it's on auto, it can help, but also it can hinder you, because let's say you have let's say you have an image, a subject, and then you want to try to get the subject slightly, it's backlit, but the sun is setting behind your subject. Well, what's going to happen is that your phone is going to search for the brightest source, and it's going to focus on that. So that's how auto can kind of hinder you. So, but what you want to do is to kind of counteract that is, if you on your phone, if you just tap on the face of your subject, it will focus on the subject fast enough and long enough for you to take that image. But if you're capable of switching it, and let me see if you can do a manual mode on it. I'm not sure if I can find it at the moment. So it might be like an app that you, oh wait, is it? Maybe, I don't know. I have to explore this new phone, but I know my last phone, I wasn't able to take it off auto. I had to use a third-party application that was strictly for manual photography in order to do something like that. But just tapping the subject, if it's on auto, it will focus on the subject. And so, so that will help you out when the camera is searching for the brightest light source. You tap on the face of your subject, and then sometimes you might just have to readjust and reframe and see what else is interesting. That happens. So those can be limitations with the cell phone, but the cell phone still is capable of doing a lot. So, yeah. Any other questions or just
I've got
comments?
one, actually,
Mhm.
Gwen here, about the rule of thirds. I just need to go back and listen to that again because it sounds really fascinating. And
Mhm.
I actually found my grid. I didn't know I had one either. I have an Android, so I think it's sort of where you described it in the iPhone. It was fairly easy to find. I'm going to leave mine on for a while so that I can play with that rule of thirds. But thank you for that. I haven't heard that explained before.
You're on mute, Jonathan.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. I was just going to say that the rule of thirds is something that is not often used, and then it's also it can also compare to the I guess you could say the golden rule, if anybody's familiar with that. So it's really all about, like, you know, balance and symmetry within the frame. And let me pull up something, an example that I have that that shows symmetry, because once you learn these these techniques, you can break them, and then you can try to do different types of things, you know, creative things, and try to just test things out. So so first, let me show how, like, rule of thirds can really change an image. So I'm gonna grab this image real quick, and then I'm also, because I'm looking through kind of my teaching reserves just to find interesting stuff to show you of how rule of thirds can really change an image. Let me see here. Because I think we're so used to, I think sometimes we're so used to taking photos or even video straight on, because that's kind of how we interact with people sometimes, and that's how we kind of talk to people. So it's natural for our eye, but then when we see something different, like this image here, so let me stretch them out real quick. And the images are pretty small, so I apologize again. Oh wait, I can zoom into them, and just right here and right here. So I'm going to share the first image right here. So this is the rule. This is applying the rule of thirds right here. So we see very faintly these white lines, and instead of having our subject in the middle, we have our subject off to the side, frame left, right? So we can see how interesting this already looks when we're taking a picture like this. Now let's see another example of rule of thirds right here. So even if we're at the eye level and this gentleman is at a low angle, the subject, we have an interesting look because he's on the intersecting lines of the rule of thirds, and then we have a bit of negative space, and also he has looking room, or leading room. But then it's like, what can I do? How can I make my images look interesting? Well, there's something about like finding the symmetry with your own eye, and then also working with something like reflections. So let me show you an image that works with reflections. So reflections can be a very interesting composition, a very interesting look. It can give you a very creative feel, like finding a puddle of water, or like a mirror, or like working with mirrors or windows or things of that sort. This can really like up your photography game. And if we look at kind of where the rule of thirds can be, so we have the vertical lines and then we have the horizontal lines, then it's kind of like there's no real rules as far as the rule of third. Like I think the subject is kind of up in the corner, like maybe her foot is reaching the intersecting line, but everything seems to be not on the intersecting lines, but it's okay because it's aesthetically pleasing and symmetrical to the eye. And then it's interesting as well. So we have like the reflection right here, and it's like, what do you want to say? What does it say to you? So that's why we kind of do things. And then here's something that I took in Madison, playing with reflections as well, right here. And this was just, just because I wanted to try it out. I just wanted to see what it looked like. Let me get it over here. So this is the reflection of the Capitol building right here. So we see the Capitol building right here, but then we also see all this other stuff. And, this was just kind of, I shot this from the hip, like, just saying like, hey, that looks cool, click, So, but I'm playing with reflections. I'm just, experimenting and practicing. And that's what it's really all about when you have your phones, is just trying something that you haven't done before, or something that you're not used to. And I think if anything, if I could take anything, if you can take anything away from tonight, I would just say like, really review your work and then just try things. So that is all I have. I want to thank everybody for coming out. I hope everyone, learned something, and then I hope you apply, whether it's to video or to photography. I hope you apply these rules and these tips with your phones, because your phones, as we've seen in recent times, and then just constantly see, your phones are very powerful tools. It is able to document anything and everything that is happening, and then now you're able to distribute it at a lightning fast pace, and get it to the masses as quickly as possible, as we're seeing with everything that is unfolding in 2021 so far, and everything that has been happening, I guess, since the late 90s, mid 90s, whatever, like, video and photography is very powerful. Like even when you go back to Gordon Parks and a lot of his photojournalistic endeavors, you're able to capture life as it's happening. So I think having these phones, having these capabilities, and this technology, it makes you a very powerful observer in the world. So thank you. Thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Oh, thank
excellent.
you. Thank